You were listening to the Orisa Economy Podcast with your host, Awolowo
and Ori Midar. We are the #1
and only
podcast and network dedicated to giving a voice to Orisa devotees that are leading in entrepreneurship.
Bit by bit, we're building the Orisa Economy Network by connecting business owners, entrepreneurs, and resource providers.
Welcome to the Orisa Economy Podcast. I am your co-host, Ori Midar.
And I'm Awolowo. Welcome.
We are so excited about today's episode, and we are going to introduce you to someone who is very close and dear to the both of us. We are going to introduce to you our god sister, Jokotifa, Alaye. But first, of course, we're going to read her bio so you can get to know more about her the way that we do. Yeah. So Jokotifa is a lifelong student of death and dying. She has over 25 years of experience as a death care professional, and she felt called to do more than participate in the traditional funeral home model and has created mourning space to fill the gaps in education and to support the society that requires for healthy living. It is Jokotifa's goal to build a community of empowered grievers that intend to save the world by living well and dying better. She is passionate about sharing information that might encourage all of us to approach the end of life and beyond with less fear and more wonder. She is a licensed funeral professional in the state of California, and an NEDA certified end-of-life doula with a focus on grief. She is grateful to call herself an Orisa devotee and lives in Redding, California under the loving protection of Mount Shasta. She can be found online on IG at Mourning Space. That's MOURNING space, and at mourningspace.com. Again, that's MOURNING space.com. So let's go ahead and bring Jokotifa to the stage.
Well, hello.
Hello.
I was laughing in the backstage. You are right, because I'll tell you why I was laughing. I changed my blue-green shirt before I got here and put on the yellow.
Wow.
See, that's okay. You're the guest, so you can stand out.
I got to stand out. That's why I did it. I knew, I was like, man, I can't just blend in.
Beautiful.
Hi, friends.
We are hi, friends. Hi, family. Hi, sis. All of that.
Yes. And Cabo as well. We're definitely excited to have you here. Super excited to have this discussion about death in life. So just starting off, we wanted to ask, how does your devotion influence the way that you conduct business?
So I'm trying to learn that now. So let me say this. I've only been an Orisa devotee for 2 years, whereas I've been a death care professional for 25 years. And my relationship as a death care professional is a little different, I think, than what it is to be an Orisa devotee. And so that's something I'm having to learn myself. However, as I am progressing in this life, it reminds me to make sure that I am serving this community now, right? And so as I am working with Mourning Space, how does that speak to the Orisa community about the way that we are going to treat death and dying, which is actually going to be something that I learn as I'm teaching it to others or as I'm helping others have that kind of transition. So it's really interesting to live so much of my life in another way and then pivot a little bit. But I'll also say one of the ways I came to our own practice was watching other people's practices. And so let me say, like, Sikh and Hindu and Hmong and Buddhist and like non-American funerals are beautiful and ritualistic with elements that I loved. And so I loved participating in those end of life rituals. And we don't really have that so much as Americans. And so in seeing what other cultures were doing made me want to know more about what my own culture was doing. So I'm excited to be in a position to help us have that kind of like same beautiful and methodical and meaningful end of life process.
Okay, I love that. So I'm going to kind of switch up on you a little bit. When you mention non-American funerals and the different rituals and the things that you've experienced as a death care professional and how beautiful it is, what is it that you see for Orisa devotees when it comes to your business and being able to contribute to making something just as beautiful and adding to that for us?
So it's going to take learning, just like I'm learning the Odu and just like I'm learning all of the principles around it, I'm going to have to spend specific time learning how we deal with death and dying. And there are some books that I have been given, some resources. Unfortunately, also some members of our community have passed that I'm related to within our ELA, right? But they're not paid people that I know, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not in a position to help them. But as those situations are unfolding, I'm trying to pay attention to what's happening so I can learn by watching and also giving showing willingness to be an assistance in the way that I can, which is a very American-based funeral system. If you need knowledge because the lingo that they're using is complicated, come to me and I'll help translate just the business side of it. Like, what are those funeral people telling you? I will tell you what they're saying and why they're saying it if they're saying something that's incongruous with what we want to do. But I think that our Oluwo is also going to is really committed to helping me in this work also. And so as he can, he sends me resources, and we've talked about creating a book actually for devotees and working together to collaborate on something. And so I absolutely believe that will happen at some point. And then I do hope to, if not find someone to apprentice under, because I think that apprenticeship piece is important. And it's what I did in funeral service. So I had to do an apprenticeship. That would be very valuable if I could find someone to apprentice under. But I want to make sure, our clients are taken care of. I want to make sure that we're having that, however many days we're supposed to have or whatever prayers we're supposed to have. I want that for us. And I want to do it. I want to help. Let me be clear about that.
Super beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's my life. That's my work. That's my natural gift and talent, right? Is showing up in that space. And I had cause to think of that today, of how few people you can call when someone dies and say, I need you to come deal with it. I mean, I need you to come help. I need you to help me take care of my person, and there's only so many people you can call.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so very true. So I listened to you, and as you mentioned, you've been in dealing with death and supporting people through that process, through the grieving process, for over 20 years. And then on the other side, you've been an Orisa devotee for over a few years now. So I just would really like to hear your journey, that transition from, that knowledge, that vast knowledge, and then incorporating, and stepping into becoming Jokotifa. Can you take us on a little bit of that journey?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So I'll start by saying, it was Karen Karnatz who joined the School of Orisa Studies in 2021, looking for a couple things, looking for a spiritual practice that would work for me. And I had tried many spiritual practices. We were born and raised Catholic. My mom actually was a nun, which, by the way, she changed her name too, which is real. Like, I'm just like putting that together. She had a different name as a nun too. But, so I came from that background, and that's not, I appreciate it for what it is, but it's not my ritual that I want to follow. So trying to find what spiritual structure would work for me, try to reestablish our ties with Africa since they have been severed very cleanly. And I wasn't about to let it go one more generation without finding that again. And a part of that also came from looking what other cultures were doing and wanting my own culture. Where's my culture? I don't where is it? What is it? And Ancestry.com helped me understand, because we don't even know. We don't know what country we come from sometimes, and so that helped. And when I found out that my father is Black, and when I found out that he was biggest chunk was Nigerian, it's like, okay, well, what do the Nigerians do? There's a place to start. And I found out Nigerians may have a babalawo. Okay, next step, where do I find a babalawo? I live in Reading. There are no Black people in Reading. There's a couple of us, but where will I go? I'll go to Oakland. So I just searched for babalawos in Oakland, and I found the School of Orisha Studies in Baba Obafemi. And I watched a couple videos, like 2, and then I was like, okay, I like the structure. I like that I like learning. I'm a real, again, methodical person, like with to-dos, and the school setting is really good for me. So I was like, okay, this sounds great. I will join the School of Orisha Studies. So joined and saw now that, of course, he's not in Oakland anymore. He was in Atlanta, and, whatever, still works. And so it's very quick of, who am I now? What do we do? Now I find someone to help me do that too. Right. And so I joined the School of Orisha Studies, not knowing nothing, not knowing who anybody was, not knowing anything, and just having to sink or swim. Right. You just got to just figure it out as you're going, and you just learn as it keeps coming at you. You just pick up little bits until finally you feel like you have a handle of it. Okay. So Karen joined, and then Karen had also been knowing that there was something more that I needed to bring to death care. And my work right now is administrative primarily. I came up as a mortician. So I went to mortuary college. I'm an embalmer. I'm a funeral director. I'm a crematory operator. I'm all these things. But at some point, I became more of someone who handled operations and less actual decedent care or working with families. And that's fine. I get to do good work in helping new people come up in the industry, but I knew that wasn't my real soul's purpose, which was more educational and serving people during loss. But I didn't know what that looked like, and I didn't know how to start. And I felt like I had big ideas, but also that my big ideas weren't actually attainable. And so I sat real stuck for a couple years and just couldn't do anything. So I started Morning Space, and I started a couple things, but I did feel very stagnant. But as I'm learning with the School of Orisha Studies, and as I'm developing this practice, and as I'm developing a relationship with my Ori and my Ifa, and with you guys as a community, it became, I got a clearer path to where it was that I needed to go in order to get the place where my Ori has always known that I will get someday. But I needed those tools. And so when I received my Handu Ifa and Jokotifa became alive in the world, it coincided with Morning Space starting to become something, starting to gain traction, starting to gain attention, starting to build and become something that actually seemed sustainable. And because of that kind of neat divide, it's really easy for me to say that Morning Space is Jokotifa. So the ways that I show up as Morning Space, that's who's coming. But I lived a very long time as Karen, right? And to my parents, and in this job that I've had for a very long time. So Karen's happy to stay working in administration. Karen's going to do that, and Jokotifa is going to take up on this other thing. And so it's been fairly easy to do that. But what's interesting though is a lot of what Morning Space does is online. and with people who are not local, and so to hear my name from people, to hear Jokotifa from people in front of me is still interesting. Like, I'm not used to being called that. And some people actually, what's been very interesting is some people in my circle here at home who I have not asked to change my name. In fact, I don't even talk about it. They just see it because they follow my social media. It's been interesting to see who has adopted that name. You know, they're just like, you say you prefer it. Like, we're just going to call you that. So some people do it, but it's still interesting to introduce myself out loud with that name. To type it is very easy. Does that make sense? Typing it's like no problem. To say it out loud and introduce myself that way, which I did at a grief workshop last weekend. You know, in a very non-African space. Felt
Yay!
like something. So yeah, there you go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that for you. I love hearing you tell your story. And I'm so glad that you make the distinction between what you've always done as Karen and what you do now as Jokotifa. So
and I also want to say this because I like it. So I love the idea of Ori, right, and prenatal choices. And so and I'm someone who deals with a lot of uncomfortable things by laughing. And I absolutely know that my Ori chose to be a Karen in this time just for the joke of it. And just to be like, you don't have to be that. Like, you're not a Karen, actually. You're a Jokotifa. You're not a Karen. So I
love that right there because you are not a Karen. You are a Jokotifa.
Yeah. So it makes the whole Karen thing like a whole, like, the poor other Karens who had to suffer because my Ori chose this joke.
Okay, Jokotifa.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit more about the morning space, and more specifically, what does it mean when you say living well and dying better? What is that?
Yeah, it is my hope for the world. We all know cognitively that death will happen for us, right? But we pretend that it won't, and we push it away, and we don't get ourselves involved in it. We don't get our children involved with it, often as a protection, right? We think we're doing right by we're protecting ourselves and our kids. But what we're really doing is creating a barrier to understanding. And the only way to do that, the only way to get to the end empowered and get to the end with the people around you knowing what to do and having the tools that they need is to live that way. So I want people to live in a way that supports a death the best death you can get. And I live in the real world. I understand that when I say that, it is painful to people who are like, when people die in very tragic ways, right? We see death and dying around us in a way that you can't imagine anyone would choose that. You can't imagine, like, there's no part of that could be good. And I think we reconcile it a little bit with, the prenatal choice that we know about, but we also understand that maybe some other forces maybe step into that. But then also we can't live our life thinking like with that premise, right? We want to live saying, like, if we can get the death we want, how do we live purposefully to have that and to give that to our children so that then they grow up with a healthy relationship with death? Because right now our kids don't have that. And we didn't have it necessarily either because it wasn't taught to us. So it's really generational, and a reason why Americans in general are very inequipped to handle death and dying is because we give it to the mortician, right? We call them, we say someone's passed, you come pick them up, and then you do the thing, and then you will show up, and then you kind of handle it, right? And instead of us being really involved in the process, not to say some people really are, but in general, as a culture, we are death averse, and we are someone else take care of it, and there's a conversation around, do we even bring our children? That's a a common question that I get, and a common thing I hear from people, is that they don't bring their kids because they're worried about their experience. But really what you're doing is preventing them from grieving with you, which we grieve, they grieve, and especially if they want to be there and we don't let them, that they'll keep that with them. They'll keep that feeling and have feelings about it as an adult. So ways that we can live purposefully to try to have the best death and dying as possible for ourselves and our community.
That's super interesting. I love that the way you have structured that. And when I think about just recently, I had someone really close to me pass away, and we had that conversation, my wife and I, about the children. Should we take them, and even that viewing aspect to it, right? Like can they go up and see the casket and things of that nature. So we left it up to them, and they they chose not to, but it was okay, because we gave them their choice. And I appreciate you for reaching out during that time and offering your support. So
yeah, that's wonderful, because you gave them the choice, and you didn't force. I'm not one to force kids either way too, because I see that too, of sometimes parents like put them up in the casket, right? Like, say goodbye to grandma. That happens too. Like, that happens. And so, I like the idea of saying you have a choice, right? You can, you're here with us. We're all together as a family. Some people, even as adults, choose not to go up to the casket, right? or see the person. And so you're validating them as a human that can make decisions.
Yeah, I love that. I've had a range of experiences with that, with my children and myself, right? Sometimes I choose not to go up, and then there are times I'm sitting up front because maybe the relationship, right? Well, this is when I'm thinking, of course, about American funerals, right? But I do remember when my father transitioned, my oldest son was like 2 or 3, and having him sit next to me, it just really made me laugh in such a sorrowful time, because they started playing the drums. And he said, "Mommy, they gonna wake up Papa playing them drums." And I just couldn't do nothing but, tears. I couldn't do nothing but laugh. But I really love what you said about validating them as a human being. So thinking of all of that, living well, dying better, and the different things that we do and don't do for whatever reasons, how can we as Orisa devotees take that on, what you're saying, living well and dying better? Or maybe even more specifically, what type of Orisa spiritual principles do you see us being able to kind of integrate to live out that motto of living well and dying better?
I think that still is one of those things that I come with so much knowledge of, I come with so much American grief, death, and dying knowledge. I can give that to you all day, but I'm still learning.
Well, how would you envision it? Because realizing, like you said, you have more on this end than on this end, right? How do you envision it? Like, what principles would you want to see?
Well, so from what I'm, learning, right, there is a certain amount of days. There is possibly the drumming component. There's definitely who handles your shrine component. And so if I am realistic, I understand that there's only going to be a few communities in the U.S. that could have an actual place that you could go that really knows how to serve that community. And so we could look to places like Atlanta or Oakland, or I don't know, there may be others, but they're like a community that has a good group that at least the funeral home could have some. Maybe that's not all that they cater to, but they're the place you go. And I will say that too about American Death Care, is that it's actually one of the last places where real culture still exists. I always think of like grocery stores and restaurants and funeral homes are the places that you go for the Asian place, you go there. The Jewish place, you go there. The Black place, you go there. And funeral homes are similar. There are Jewish funeral homes and Chinese funerals and Black funeral homes where that community goes there. So it would be nice to have that place for us where we go. That's the Orisa funeral home. So I would love to have that in those places that can support them. It's not going to happen in Reading, but it'll happen in other places. But I'd also like to have and something that I'm thinking as a possibility for me as like a person who comes to support a babalawo in that ritual, right? So as like I hate to say like event planner, but there are like, specialized event planners. If you're going to have this specific thing, you go to this person and they help line it out. So it'd be nice to have people who were versed in our culture, versed in what the end of life process looks like, and can be deployed to go and make that vision happen. Because there are things that has to happen in a quick amount of time and within a framework which may or may not be supportive, right? It might be hard to do the things you want to do, and the funeral home understand it and like get with the program. So someone to manage that communication gap between a funeral home when you're not in a place that would have the Orisa funeral home, right? So if you're not there, who can you call to come out and help that happen for you? Make sure it happens the way it's supposed to.
Makes sense. I think about we think about funerals and the way that happens. I know most families, specifically Black families, this funeral home is going to do the body. They always do the body, and that's it, and this person is going to preach the funeral, or this church, or it really doesn't matter what these spiritual practices are of the deceased. It's what the family wants to do. And at every funeral I've been to, unless they had a really specified spiritual path or religion, it's always said that they gave their life to God or Christ at an early age or something to that effect. And so for me, I would say, just thinking about what you said, someone to kind of integrate those services and communicate. What do you do if your loved one is deceased and they've, clearly communicated in writing? This is what is to be done when I transition from here, and this is who you call, and this is the way this needs to happen. Like, don't say that I did this and I did that, and And so I see that. Not my family. It's my family's pretty good with things like that. Like, they listen to me. Like, I'm not worried about that per se. If that was like soon, but I don't know what would happen 20 years from now or 40 years from now. But I do see that as something that should be in our network. So what do you think? What do you think?
I think two things about that. I think one, if you have like an established Ile with a babalawo and a community that's like ours, there should be a protocol. There should be, when a death happens, this is what happens, and it should be. I know a lot of our culture is sort of, verbal, right? But there should be like, this is what happens when someone dies, and this is what you're going to do, right? You're going to call this person, and this is what's going to happen, and you're going to get the. So if every Ile had that, it would at least give those members information about what to do. Something. And then secondly, and this is for everyone all over the place, you should have these conversations. So that's another part of living well, is having these conversations that people don't want to have because we want death to be far away. And so we sometimes feel like if we talk about it, we're bringing it closer. But what happens when we don't talk about it is that we don't get what we need. Right. And so at the very least, talk about it, and you talk about it with your family, and you talk about it with your kids, or write it down, say, when I go, this is what I want. And then there are funeral homes also, and most funeral homes, I would say, you can make your pre-arrangements with the funeral home too. And so maybe there's going to be the Orisa funeral home that you go make your Orisa pre-need, which can be, you guys got the financial acumen in this room. It can be a wise financial decision to make arrangements with the funeral home ahead of time, because you do lock in prices. You can lock in prices today, and then you die 40 years from now, and you're not paying what you'd pay in 40 years, right? So, it'd be nice if there was a place you knew you could go to do your pre-need with people who understood, and you could pay for the actual thing that you're going to do. What I'd worry that would happen in this moment is that people would arrange for the closest thing possible, and it may or may not pan out to be what we're trying to actually have. So you have to be real specific on, I'm going to say I want a chapel service, but really what I mean when I say chapel service is this is what's going to happen, right? That's just the line item I'm going to put on my contract.
Okay.
I really love that aspect that you pointed out about death being a cultural event. So, I just want to highlight that point for our listeners, because that means that all of the pieces to the network are right around us, right? Like we already cluster in that manner, right? What, the Asians have their way of burying, so we would have our way of burying people also. So those pieces to that network are right around you. So just look to the people who are right around you and reach out to us so we can add those pieces to the network, and we can support Jokotifa in her mission.
Ashe. And I know there's one woman who is, I don't know that she's an Orisa devotee, but I don't know of any other funeral professionals that are Orisa devotees. I don't know. I mean, there must be some, but there are, like, the one I'm thinking of is Gula Gichi. Is that how you'd say it? But it's very cultural.
She's a death doula?
I believe so. She's another death care professional, and I believe she acts at a death doula capacity.
Okay.
Wow, that's interesting. So that's a call to action. If you are in the death space and you're an Orisa devotee, definitely reach out. As you can see,
yeah, show up.
We need to connect. I definitely don't want nothing sneaky to happen after I go. They just slightly mentioned he was an Orisa devotee, and then but he got baptized when he was 3.
Well,
the thing to do with that is talk to your, okay, so here's another practical point I'm just going to tell you. Figure out who your next of kin is, because that's a big deal. And states are going to be different, and that's the person who's in charge. That's the person who's in charge is your next of kin, and it could be your spouse. People could get another document that actually makes them in charge instead of the spouse. The person would have to sign it. But anyway, that's number one. Find out who your next of kin is and make sure they know.
That's right. My kids better not. They know what it is. But anyway, no, they wouldn't do it. It's the parents. It's like if you go before your parents, oh no. Yeah. They doing what they want to do. Yeah. If you're not married or something, right?
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. And look, I'm thinking I'm pretty sure my parents would. Yeah. If I had something in writing, they'd follow it. And my mom is real, as Catholic as she is, she's real, live and let live, and kind of, even she's like, I don't want the funeral mass. I want something else. I want this other thing. And so she's flexible.
Yeah. My mom wouldn't do that. I've already given her if anything happened to me, if it's just an accident and I can't talk, you better call Baba, and whatever he tell you to do, do it. Have him at your house. Do it.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I'm I better talk to my husband. I better talk to my husband. My husband's 20 years older than me, and so even me, I'm like, he won't need to know. But he might.
I need to know. Oh my goodness.
That's the conversation that needs to happen for all of us.
Yeah.
That's definitely one thing I want to take away from this conversation, that we shouldn't keep pushing death away, because it's inevitable. What's the cliche? No one's getting out of here alive.
And we're not. And I don't want to live forever either. Like, no, at some point I'll be tired. I'll gotta. These people are trying to like cryogenics and stuff. I'm like, for what?
Well, if you outlive everybody, like all your children and grandchildren and great-grand, I mean, really, I've seen that. I really have seen that where people have outlived all of their children. Seriously. And we're not talking about children who transition young, so to speak. They just lived a long time. And, but anyway, so as we come to a close, we always want to know from our guests, what would you like to see in the Orisa Economy Network? So we're building this network of Orisa devotees who are leading in entrepreneurship, and we want to make sure that we have something for everyone as we think about solving our own problems. So what would you like to see in the network? Who or what industry?
Well, and when it comes to, for me, what's important is mental health. What's important is herbal medicine, just the things that would nourish our minds and bodies, right? And so where are our therapists? Where are our other funeral professionals? Where are our grief counselors? Who can make the things that are supportive in grief? So I just did like an essential oils workshop along with my grief workshop, so people left with a tool to support them. And so who else, what other tools can be made that are grief supportive, and how do we align with them? And then, of course, are the people that I love, like you guys. And Orikoku's massage, let me tell you something, like body work is important. If you need a massage in Brooklyn, you go to Orikoku. So things that take care of our bodies and minds, people who would take care of our bodies and minds.
Okay. I love it. So we're
personally, I couldn't. So I, love the work that I do. And people often say like, oh, I could never do what you do, like with death care. But like, I need help paying my taxes. So I give thanks for the people, the accountants, and the people that then when we are here having our businesses, the people that would help us structure those businesses in a way that is sustainable. So I just want to make sure I was saying that you can have those professionals, but then I was talking to a healthcare professional today, and we were both talking about our hang-ups around business structure, right? And and how we need to buckle down and figure it out, which I'm in the middle of doing with your help.
Good. I agree with all the things. I want to see everybody in the network. So if she named you, your industry, your business, your career, hello, reach out to us. Please.
And the statistics say that's and when it comes to Black entrepreneurship and business ownership, the health field is one of the biggest areas where we have an impact. So, and it goes back to what we were speaking about with where it's cultural, right? You want somebody that understands the nuances that you deal with day to day, and whether that's just with race or with your religion. It helps that if you have a practitioner that understands where you're coming from emotionally and spiritually, as well as
yeah, it's so nice when I do have those spaces to come say my stuff, to not like people. I just started working with a business strategist, and I don't know if she's a devotee or not, but I was saying I wanted to do something, and she was asking more questions about it. I was like, well, do you know the concept of Ori? And she's like, oh yeah. And I was like, well, Ori says I have to do it. And she's like, oh, no problem. Let's do it then. And it's nice to be able to say that stuff.
Yeah. Makes it simple.
Yeah. We gotta go into a backstory that they may or may not think is weird,
Right.
Yeah. You don't want to have to explain everything. So Okay. Well, we want to make sure that our listeners go check you out. So we have been on with our guest Jokotifa of the Morning Space. She is creating a space for empowered grievers, living well and dying better. So you can check her out at morningspace.com on IG, and that's morning as in MOURNING space, and also morningspace.com. If you have any requests for information or have any ideas of someone we should interview, anything like that, you can reach out to us at media@orishaeconomy.com. You can follow us on all of the social media sites at orishaeconomy.com. And also sponsorships. Like, we have so many things that we are building in this network, and we are really excited about what's to come. So again, thank you all for listening today. I am your co-host, Ori Midara.
And I'm Owolowo.
So check us out, orishaeconomy.com, and at Orisha Economy, again, on all social media sites. Odabo.
Odabo.